Woke, woke, woke. The collapse of America because of the woke culture. That's the topic of today's Golden Lunch. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chapman, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Woke corporatism. Woke millennials. Woke school systems. Woke, woke, woke. Aren't you sick and tired of being told that your thinking, your mindset, your beliefs are all wrong? That if you're a patriotic American citizen, that means you're racist, you're misogynist, you're a hater, you're intolerant. And let's not even get going about if you're a Christian. You're an outright bigot. You're an outright hater. Woke, woke, woke. If we don't, as a country, get off this woke wagon, we're not going to last as a country much longer. Before I get into that, I want to quickly mention that if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app. That is the online platform for faith-based podcasts. You can get Bold and Blunt at Spotify and wherever podcasts are offered. And most importantly, perhaps, seeing as I work here, you can get Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com. Just go to the online Washington Times, scroll to the bottom of the page where there is a newsletter section, click on it, find my name, and you can subscribe to my 3 times a week newsletter where you will get all my commentaries that I write all day long at the Washington Times to help arm you with the bullet points you need to fight the far left. But also, within those newsletters will be my twice weekly Tuesday and Thursdays Bold and Blunt podcasts. You don't want to miss them. Sign up now. Get everything delivered right to your email box Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in time for the lunch hour. Okay, woke culture. Listen to this. This was penned by the Heritage Foundation, and I'm just going to read a little bit of history of woke culture and woke capitalism and wokeness to put it into perspective, to give a little historical context to where this all came from. In 2015, Heritage wrote, Ross Douthat, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so let me spell it, Douthat. Ross, however you say that last name, coined the term woke capitalism when writing a piece for the New York Times. He defined it as how companies signal their support for progressive causes in order to maintain their influence in society. I would just say that maybe it's not even so much progressive causes so much as it is outright Marxist causes. That being said, back to Heritage, he really tapped into something. Since then, this mindset has only grown as the largest corporations are now weighing in on almost every major and not so major public policy issue. The problem, they increasingly land on the leftist side of the issue. So why is that? To step aside from Heritage for a second, why is wokeness always leftist? Well, here's one answer to that question. Because those on the right-minded side of things, those on the conservative side of things, or constitutional side of things, Republican even, have jobs to go to. They're not just sitting in their basements, in their mother's basements, playing video games, trolling social media for outrage and offensiveness and ways to react to outrage and offensiveness. They're not just sitting there looking at Twitter accounts of those of whom they disagree politically and trying to come up with little snazzy comebacks to whatever these people that they disagree with put on their own Twitter feeds. Conservatives generally have families to raise. They have jobs to go to. They have goals and ambitions and sort of plans in life that they hope to accomplish. They have dreams, and not just the type of dreams where, oh, I want everybody to get along, or, love is love, and things like that. They have actual dreams that they want to accomplish for themselves, for their families, and get this, for their generations of families. Yes, they think long term. And they think out consequences for actions and so forth. So they're not just sitting back and scanning social media for things that make them feel bad and looking for ways to express their outrage and entering echo chambers where all the low information types out there band together to talk about how their feelings have been hurt by those dastardly, say, deplorables who support Trump. No, they're working, they're busy, they're going to school and they're working a job while they're in school, or they're looking for the next job that gets them up the ladder of success. They're planning, they're plotting their lives and so forth. They're actually living. So leftists, though, don't do that. They have a different world. They populate a different circle, and it's all about their feelings. And usually it's all about their angst and their anger, because those are the feelings that drive them to act. And because they're such intense feelings, they get to pretend like the actions that come from those feelings are truly accomplishing something. When they get angry, they go out in the streets and they scream and they wail. And so they feel like they're actually accomplishing something, when really they're not. But this is how they get corporations to listen to them. They go out and they stand on street corners, either literally or figuratively, petition these corporations to take actions that they think are right in their own minds, because again, much of the left relies on their own minds and their own guidance to dictate to them how things should be in life. They rarely consider the higher power. They rarely consider church or biblical teachings. They're freed of those constraints. They're freed of accountability to a higher power. And so that, of course, gives them even more freedom to express their anger any which way they want, any which way they can, because in their own minds, they're justified. They're justified because their cause is right. They want equality, and love is love, and tolerance for all is tolerance for all. And they come up with little snappy sayings like this that are really meaningless, but they feel in their own philosophical minds that they're so smart because they come up with sayings like this. And then they force these sayings onto corporations, for example, to take action on. Love is love, and that means that money from corporations, instead of going to shareholders, must go to support causes like Black Lives Matter or radical environmentalism. And that's the woke corporate culture, right? It's corporations caving to these low information types who have no lives themselves and live entirely by feelings, much like the animals do, and aren't afraid to go out into the streets and cry and defecate on sidewalks to show their opposition to this or that, because, once again, they aren't accountable to a higher power, or they think they aren't accountable to a higher power because they don't believe that. So it's lives run by emotion. Generally, your more passionate, strong emotions like anger or outrage, because those are the emotions that fuel the action, and those are the emotions that get them the most attention. And so it's this woke culture, this woke corporatism that Heritage pens, that is crumbling America from within, because it's completely distancing corporations, society, from the notion of law and order and any sense of courtesy and politeness and manners that used to mark American culture. So what is the impact, Heritage asks? So what is the impact of this woke capitalism? Is this a coordinated effort? What is the antidote to this corporate wokeness infiltrating our largest American companies? That's a great question. And more than that, this was penned a couple years ago from Heritage. More than that, though, what is the impact of woke society? Because we've moved beyond now woke capitalism, and we've moved into woke society. And lucky for us, lucky for Bold and Blunt listeners, I have a great guest today who has just written a book on wokeness. The book is called The Woking Dead: How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. It's a new release. It's a #1 new release, already a bestseller. And no wonder, because the author is A.J. Rice, and he wears many hats. He is the CEO of Publius PR, which is a top-ranked public relations and communications agency. And either through this agency or in his background of being a producer, he has worked with some of the finest minds in American media and scholarship and politics, including Monica Crowley, Donald Trump Jr., Jeanine Pirro, Laura Ingraham, Steve Scalise. The list goes on and on and on. Victor Davis Hanson, Alan Dershowitz, Peter Navarro. Just go to his company webpage, publiuspr.com, and check out more, or go to his author page at Simon & Schuster. But he's here today to discuss the woke culture and the impact of the woke culture on American society. A.J. Rice, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. I really appreciate your time.
Great being here. We love the Washington Times, love the podcast. Just want to say thank you for putting some of our people on over the years. You guys... You're real fighters.
Well, you have the best guests, and you do a lot of fighting yourself, which let's get into. But first, let me mention your new book, The Woking Dead: How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. What a title. Why'd you write it, and what's it about?
Well, during COVID, we were under a sort of soft authoritarianism from the China virus. And I noticed there was actually another virus afoot that was nastier and more intrinsic and, basically seeping through the culture while we were in lockdown, and that was wokeism. It comes in many forms: cancel culture, microaggressions, claims about white privilege, attacks on our schools, attacks on our entertainment, interruptions in our sports. It has seeped into everything. And it's a way to kind of control us, to control the culture, control how we speak, what pronouns we use. So I had to write something about it. I mean, it started off as a column, and it turned into the book that I believe you have in your hands.
And I love the drama that seems to be at least part of the promotional materials for this book. Let me read just a quick sentence from your Amazon page. The Woking Dead are everywhere, an army of undead ghouls turning millions into mindless, ravenous devourers of all things good and American. Very dramatic, but really very true. What are some examples that you found?
Well, look, we like to have some fun, right? So it's obviously, we're playing around with The Walking Dead by calling them The Woking Dead. I've even got a quote in the beginning of the book from Vincent Price's monologue from Michael Jackson's The Thriller. And the zombies are coming up out of the ground. I mean, look, we have a commander-in-chief that is literally a reanimated corpse, okay? He is what I call the American meat puppet. And all the hopes and dreams of all the progressives around him kind of fill him up. He's like an empty trash can that they're filling up with all their goodies. The potpourri of wokeism. And look, he's allowing them to do it. Whether he has command of his faculties or not, he has pretty much said he wants to be to the left of FDR. So a lot of our culture means more to us than politics. Some of my mentors taught me that. People like Laura Ingraham, Monica Crowley, Andrew Breitbart. Over the years, the American people, this is where they're willing to plant their flag. They may not know who the senior senator from Idaho is or Mississippi, but they know when they come home and they get their kids' textbooks, whether a bunch of anti-American garbage is being spoon-fed via CRT or the 1619 Project or the LGBTQ mafia. If it's in their textbooks, it kind of backfired on Democrats. All these lockdowns, parents actually got home and they were working from home and they were looking at what their kids were reading, sent to them by the public school system, or should I call it the government school system.
Yeah, I think that is the ray of sunshine from these lockdowns. And I've heard that said on more than one occasion that finally parents were awakened, or as you might say, woke on what's taking place in our public school systems. What I like, or what I seem to like about your book so far, is that you hit hard at the big threat in America, and that is individualism versus collectivism. Talk about that a bit.
Absolutely. Well, look, the American dream, well, what's left of it, is all about, self-determination, being able to, make it here. I mean, there's a ton of stories out there about people that came from nothing. I mean, Justice Clarence Thomas came from nothing. My father was a member of the coal miners union in West Virginia, put himself through law school. Now he's an attorney in Philadelphia. When I was in my early 20s, I worked in a mall. 4 years later, I was on the air with Laura Ingraham as her basic executive producer and her sidekick. She gave me a blurb for the book. She's like my big sister. So, the Democrats want to control us. And they want to do it. It used to just be the nanny state, right? So they're going to tell us what kind of salt to not use or don't buy. Michael Bloomberg regulating big gulps at the 7-Eleven.
Right.
But now they're in our house. They're following us home. They're in our entertainment. And you've got really a bunch of pernicious forces where you've got Hollywood, you've got academia, you've got the media, which is 95%, woke, left-wing, kooks, and then you've got government. And government, when it flexes its muscles, apparently can raid the home of a former president of the United States. And the FBI this week declared itself, I guess, the militant wing of the Democratic Party. And they all take off from an aircraft carrier, okay? That's how they project power. And the aircraft carrier that they all take off from is big tech. And big tech is how they refuel. Big tech is how they project power, how they shut us down, how they shadow ban us. And I got to tell you, this week, out of nowhere, I get a message from LinkedIn. LinkedIn has put me in LinkedIn jail because of user violations. Now, you tell your audience, I use LinkedIn as a way to kind of brag about the clients we have and the media we get them. So what do we do on LinkedIn? It's kind of like a news feed. We put up, this person did this interview here, and this person was on Newsmax, and this person was on, this radio station, or they wrote this op-ed in the Washington Times. So we got shut down because we shared a story about Gregory Wrightstone and climate change, and two stories about Naomi Wolf and her research on vaccines. So boom, the Woking Dead show up. I couldn't have timed it more perfect. The digital brown shirts arrived this week merely because we shared pieces about our clients. So, that's how casual this has gotten. And they're everywhere.
I didn't know that you were going to talk about LinkedIn as being the attacker of your PR agency, because it's funny, about a year ago, LinkedIn booted me because as an opinion writer at the Washington Times, I wrote a fact-based opinion that linked to the facts that I drew my opinion from about the vaccine, about the virus, and somebody complained on there and LinkedIn booted me, shut me down completely. So, that's a little bit coincidental that both you and I, just in the course of this conversation, both attacked by LinkedIn. Imagine how many other conservatives are out there facing the same prospects.
Yeah, and, some of them don't have microphones like us.
Right.
Or PR firms or newspapers to expose it. But they're out there, and they want to, look, this whole thing that we've been put through with a medical virus turned loose, whether it escaped the lab or it escaped Fauci's lunchbox, I'm not I'm not here to debate that, but there's a virus in the culture, and then there's a medical virus. This was a dress rehearsal to control us. I mean, look how brazen they've gotten.
Yeah.
They're rolling in to the president's home. I mean, it's outrageous. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, this is like East Germany stuff. So, I mean, this is really. I mean, this is like, I mean, the Sandinista. I mean, this is craziness. And look, it's all about what we're willing to take during their dress rehearsal. How far can we push them to control them?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just outrageous.
Do you see what I was just listening to what you were saying, and I was picturing somebody who is not politically aware, who generally doesn't pay attention to what's going on, but now, of course, has seen the headlines about the FBI raiding Trump's home. Do you think that's enough to wake those people up to the perils in America right now?
Well, I mean, as you know, I work with, some of the authors we work with are some of the people the FBI's already done this to, like Peter Navarro,
yes,
Paul Manafort.
Yep.
I mean, I got a lot of texts last night that said, Trump just won the election.
I agree.
Trump got 50 million more votes. I've got a bunch of those. I mean, look, our side is aware. I mean, but the problem we have is events like this validate the kookery over on MSNBC and on BuzzFeed and all those places. And then our people, it just makes us nuts. The question, I guess, becomes like the radical middle. I mean, what are they thinking? So far, no. I mean, I believe the president should go out there. The former president should go out there and explain why this is happening, because you can't just leave it up to you or me or Hannity or Bongino to explain it, right?
Right.
I think someone needs to go out there beyond just issuing a statement and frame this. Otherwise, the casual news reader will just glimpse a headline and have some negative thing they might have heard from a coworker or a family member validated in their own head. Oh, the FBI doesn't just roll into people's houses for fun, do they? Right? So, because they don't follow it. It's like the Housewives of America waking up for 20 years thinking Good Morning America is fair or The View is fair. It's not fair. And thanks to outlets like yours, 35 years of Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, Hannity, Levin, now certain people know none of that's fair. So, there's an education that has to happen here about how the administrative state has been weaponized. How you basically have, I mean, this is craziness. It's like a junta. I mean, this is weaponizing the Justice Department like this.
Yeah.
Outrageous. Can you imagine if Trump decided to go scoop up Eric Holder?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and he defied a subpoena. Nothing happened.
There was a note of optimism that I saw a couple months ago, or maybe it was just a few weeks ago, that the youth in America were fleeing the Democrat Party, that Joe Biden, the youthful vote that drove him into office, that drove him to gain so many votes, were bucking back against Joe Biden, the idea of a second Biden administration, and the Democrat Party in general. And maybe this plays into your book, The Woking Dead, How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. But could you weigh in on what you think about the youthful embrace of socialism, but at the same time, the youthful fleeing of Joe Biden?
Yeah, so the foreword of this book was written by Jason Matera, who had a New York Times bestseller about 15 years ago called The Obama Zombies.
Yep.
Kind of laid out the millennials, which I'm a member of, Jason is too, which is Generation Y. And never really called that anymore. They're just called millennials. And how Obama was able to sort of hypnotize them and bring them into the fold and win twice. He didn't need Joe to win twice. He took Joe off a trash heap, okay? Now, they showed back up. They didn't really like Hillary, but you're not really – millennials are now becoming members of, home ownership and everything. I mean, millennials have gotten screwed over by current events at different times in their life, whether it was 9/11 or the housing crisis or COVID. So you've now got this generation that came after the millennials, which was Gen Y, which is Gen Z. Gen Z are the people that basically make up the woking dead that helped deliver Joe the White House. I'm not entirely convinced that they're walking away. I think there are, people in my generation, the millennials, that are becoming a little more independent because they're starting to make some actual money, and they're starting to look at, inflation and what things are costing, and they're wondering what the hell happened here. So the thing about Joe is there's no emotional connection there.
Right.
With Barack Obama, with Ronald Reagan, with Donald Trump, there's an emotional connection. People are emotionally involved with them. And yeah, we made fun of the Obama emotions because it was like watching, an Obama-gasm happen, whether it was in the media or just on the street. People falling on the ground like they're at some Pentecostal church.
The tingle down my leg.
Right, exactly. So I think it's easier to sever with Joe because Joe's, like I said, he's just kind of a reanimated corpse that maybe reads the prompter like Ron Burgundy, and sometimes some days he gets it right, and some days he's falling all over himself. He can't even put a suit jacket on. So yeah, and that's because they're fickle. I don't know if they're learning anything, if that's your question. I mean, I think they probably would vote for Bernie Sanders tomorrow. I don't know who they want, who their perfect candidate would be, but the bench on the Democrat side is pretty thin. And the one thing I will say is that the Young Americans Foundation, Turning Point USA, and I know the guys at both places. I mean, they really have done a great job of mobilizing the Gen Z and Gen Y that are conservatives. And they seem to have, some momentum and get more coverage than, I guess, their left-wing counterparts, who I guess are the pink pussycat hat people and the dirty, the stinky Antifa, no deodorant wearing people, and I guess the people outside the Supreme Court chaining themselves up to the door, I guess. So, I mean, look, I hope we can continue to convert people, but like I said, with this big bill the Democrats just passed, trying to buy votes, nothing gets a vote like goodies from the government.
Yep. And the Great Reset coming on hard, the global pressure to exert as much of the globalist vision in America before Joe Biden actually leaves office. That's pretty strong. I just want to finish up with this one question. I assume that in your book, and I haven't finished reading it, but you offer up solutions. So what do you see the best way to effectively fight against the far left?
Well, the one way to fight against wokeism is to vote with your wallet, right? Vote with your feet, vote with your wallet. So, and obviously you got to show up and make sure, we send Pelosi and Schumer packing in November. Read, educate yourself, try to spend some time developing, arguments against some of this nonsense. You can use my book, and there are other books, your books even. And you've got to sort of fight back because their corporations are trying to, control you, whether it's the NBA or Disney. And, you can turn it off. You can turn the NFL off. People have. Get down with the kneeling stuff. The NBA was painting Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe on the court. And people are fleeing. So, now, granted, the craziest thing about it is, as Americans flee these American products, the NBA and Disney basically say to themselves, okay, if, John in Wichita doesn't want to watch, the Chicago Bulls anymore, we'll go get 100 Johns in China to watch it.
Right.
So they basically are replacing their American customers with communist Chinese customers. Okay, which basically shows us who they really are. So turn it off. Don't buy it. You know, they want to remove Tim Allen from Buzz as being Buzz Lightyear. Don't take your kids to see it. And, you know, that's what you have to do. And it's really a shame because that's not what this country was supposed to be. Okay? Conservatives weren't supposed to be the people that had to invent their own schools and their own comedy shows and their own TV shows and write, you know. But we've gotten more and more separated as a people. Like two different cultures happening here. So, but we need to be engaged. You know, the American people swim downstream from culture. We have to vote both in November at the ballot box and with our wallet.
Yeah, I think just engage and fight any way you can, as you just described. I think that's the key to winning back this country from the far leftists that just want to destroy us from within. A.J. Rice, you are a rock star publicist, and now adding to your long history and experience, The Woking Dead, How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture, a great read. I want to thank you for being on Bold and Blunt.
Oh, I love being here. You know, you guys are fantastic. We appreciate everything you do to, you know, showcase authors and analysts, and you know, we love the Washington Times. I used to work in that building.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to have you on board with the Washington Times. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Take some of his advisements to heart. Look, we all feel it. The woke culture is destroying America, but it's time to stop just feeling it and start fighting back at it effectively. I know many of us already do. We already fight the woke culture, the woke capitalism, the woke corporate culture, the woke society, woke education officials, woke. But it's still around. We have to keep up the fight. Once again, for those in the back of the room, The Woking Dead is the title. I want to thank you for listening. Remind you that you can get Bold and Blood at edify.app. That is the online platform for faith-based podcasts. You can also get Bold and Blunt at WashingtonTimes.com and wherever podcasts are offered. And one other quick mention, my latest book, Lockdown, The Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom, is out and about at all your major bookstores as well as on Amazon. Pick up a copy and see how to fight the far left globalist interests that are infiltrating America, bringing with them their woke culture. Appreciate all you Bold and Blunt listeners out there. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, stay blunt.